So, guys, today's topic is a very sensitive topic. It really brings an impact to a family if it happens to any of the family member.
Okay.
And that is about laid off from an organization.
But before that, let's introduce ourselves for all this. I know many people know us, but all those people who are coming here for the first time and going to listen to this later, all those people, let's introduce ourselves.
So, I'm Nutan. I'm a career and a life coach.
And I'm Dheeraj, and I'm a life coach, career coach, business coach, and a spiritual coach.
And today we are here to discuss, like I said, a very sensitive topic about how to reduce your chances of being laid off. But before going to that topic, let me first tell all of you that both of us are a career coach. I'm Nutan, he's Dheeraj. We together form ND Life Coaching.
Yes.
We typically coach mid-age people, that is people with 12 to 15 years of experience who are going through a career stagnation, are not really happy at their job, maybe looking at a career change, not sure which path to take, or they know they're happy in this organization, but they don't know how to negotiate and have a hike. We've had wonderful example of working in the same organization, getting a 90% hike, or taking a job with 100 to 100% hike, or shifting your career into something that you thoroughly enjoy and you're passionate about.
Yes.
Moving from an entrepreneur to an employee to an entrepreneur. All these career transitions we have done for so many people.
We've also given results to people who were laid off and they were jobless for at least some 6 months, some 1 year, some 2 years, and we were able to ensure that they also get a breakthroughs. And that is why today's topic, whatever that we're going to share, is from the experience that we have gathered on this topic, and we're going to share this to you so that you can also minimize your risk of getting laid off. So there we go. Let's start.
So are you all ready, guys? Let's have some names. If you are...
Hi Rajesh, good evening. Hi Varun, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Great. So like I said, layoff is truly a scary
word. Absolutely.
The minute you hear this, even if you're knowing the name of the company and you know someone works there, your heart skips a beat.
Yes.
I hope he's safe.
Like for example, this is a very scary situation. I have seen a lot of people who have been laid off, and basically those people who are the breadwinner of the family. Okay.
So, we went through this phase a few years back, and I remember going to one of the person's house where the breadwinner had lost his job. It came unknowingly to him, his wife and child and his mother, 3 of them dependent on him.
Yes.
The wife had just started some small little thing which she was doing after, really taking care of the child. So the whole entire family was dependent on him.
Yes.
The house running on a EMI like we usually are. Typically we want to buy a house, take it on a EMI, have a car on a EMI, and all of a sudden you're back home and you don't know when you're going to get the next job. I met this family. So we are a part of an NGO and we go and encourage people. And the kind of environment that was there, the mother was so scared.
Yeah.
Because the son, after that incident happened, would literally shut him off inside the room. They would knock and invite him for the food. He would hardly come out, and they'd be so scared that I hope he doesn't do something wrong, right? So it's not very easy to go through that situation, and the family members have to be very, very understanding and supportive in that given time.
Yes.
Not only the main breadwinner, a person who really goes through a layoff, goes through a lot of anxiety, loses self-confidence, is not really feeling great about oneself. All of a sudden your self-esteem just drops down completely.
Very true.
And the trend was that people working in the IT industry would be so anxious those times that if they got a call from the HR, they would not be excited that, oh, there's a promotion, there's a hike, I'm getting recommended for a project. But the fear would be, what if today would be that day, or now is the moment? And the process really became quite lethal. There were times when the HR would just call the employee at their desk, give them this news, collect the keys, ask them to vacate the place in 15 minutes. And I truly, truly wish this never happens with anyone in any stage of life. But reality is such.
And it happens. That's the truth. That's life. In fact, I remember if it's Friday evening and Friday night. Good evening, Shefali Janvi. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. So I know someone that Friday evening HR had called around 9 o'clock saying that, please meet me on Monday morning. This guy has not slept Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, constantly worried that am I being laid off. He started preparing himself. That no, the reason he called me, koi job opportunity hai kya dekh? I said, what happened? I said, HR has called me on Monday, so which means mera number lag gaya. And he was so scared, he freaked out. Monday morning, he went to the HR. HR said, you know what? There's some new kind of policy that we're wanting to do. We wanted to have your suggestion. Now, can you believe that? But that 3 nights, he became older than 10 years. Because that 3 nights, he was so stressed, he would have had a heart attack. Okay? So that was a phase that we went through where layoff was happening so high.
So I would really like to know from Rajesh, Shefali, Janvi, Kshitija, Varun, has any one of you ever witnessed something like this in your friend, family member, relative, colleague, peer's life, and that experience of, really being laid off? And how did it really impact that family or the family members? Please share. We would love to know your comments. Till then, let's try and understand, why do companies actually lay off people?
Yes.
In fact, when all this was happening, I got a chance of interacting with a lot of HR people. And believe me, the HR person who really recruits you never enjoys the process of laying off people.
Absolutely. True.
It's so beautiful to give someone a job. But as HR manager, they all said that that's the most difficult task to conduct.
Yes.
And currently, startups are going through layoffs. We would be hearing this news on and off on the LinkedIn that this company today laid off so many people, that company laid off so many people. Before that, I just mentioned, the IT industry was going through this season of layoffs.
In fact, I remember 2008 when there was a financial meltdown. That time, there were so many financial companies who went through the same phase. There were thousands of people being laid off because of the situation that company went through. So let's understand that why is that a company takes a harsh step. Like at times you feel it's cruelty.
Absolutely right.
Okay, it's not a great thing, but then there are reasons why company takes such a harsh step. Let's understand that.
So the first reason could be the company is really bleeding. The numbers are in red. The balance sheet just is showing everything in red.
Yes.
And there is no scope of recovery in the near future. They don't know what's going to happen. Like the IT industry happened when the US all of a sudden declared that Indians are not going to be getting the visa there, lot of work will not come to India, and all of a sudden software came to freezing. So, these kind of things, and we know that we don't know when this is going to change.
So basically, by and large, the situation comes where we don't know when will the recovery happen. And that is the time when layoffs, or rather, good evening, Prem Chandra, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. So second, when mergers take place. Okay, like for example, I was working with an American company which was taken over by the Indian corporate company, and they left, leaving us high and dry. And I know so many people were laid off because the company which took over, they wanted a specific skill set requirement. They wanted a few amount of manpower, and that is why there was so much of layoff that was happening. Fortunately, I was not one of them, but I could see so many people being laid off because of this merger that happened, or the company was sold to this company and the ex-company just moved out.
Right. So, then that staff is not really required because they cannot retain two companies'
manpower. Absolutely.
Together. So whenever there's a manpower constraint due to mergers, that's second reason. Third reason is when the stakeholders in the company are not happy with the figures.
Yes.
And the funding gets stopped. For example, Silicon Valley, so much of investment came in, startups happened, people, really were emerging from everywhere.
Very true.
People were hired. It was a great idea. And then it is not really doing well. The funding starts getting stopped. Why? Because the profits are not showing after the specified time. So what is the way to work it out? You have to cut down on cost. And that is what is currently happening with the startups. Layoffs are happening in that area.
Yes. Then when there is an economic, as I said, there was an economical meltdown that happened, and even COVID. Okay, there was a huge crisis that came. And in this phenomena, so was largely in much wider scale that it started happening. Because, nobody knew. So for 3 months, it was still fair enough. But when it crossed that 3-6 months, everybody was scared. They didn't knew when is this going to stop? When are we going to get into a normal world? And that's exactly happened in meltdown also 2008. Economical crisis came, and it was not only about India. This meltdown was worldwide 2008, and that's why so many companies had to lay off.
There's another way of layoff, which happened in the banks. So, when suddenly there's an upgrade in the technology. So, the staff which was working for a very, very long time, never used to laptops and
Yes.
computers, all of a sudden there's a software, everything is happening on the computer, and they couldn't really upgrade their skills. So, that is the time people get laid
Yeah,
off. in
whenever
such-
technology development happens, not only bank but also in the manufacturing side, where people have been doing a certain set of skill set, now technology has come and it is replacing all this skill set, and that's how layoff happens.
One rare incident that all of us just heard was laying off of people, which Wipro did. That, of course, was on ethical grounds. They
Yes.
believed that what these employees were doing was not ethical, and they had to lay off these people.
There are some countries who have one and it's not a great strategy, but they have a strategy of common practice of laying off people to just keep the pressure, okay, so that people keep performing.
So, 3 years, 6 months, or it's a quarterly or a 6 monthly
Yes.
process which happens in these organizations where they are constantly laying off people and hiring new people.
Absolutely,
One way is to reduce the cost, second is the pressure that if you don't perform,
your number is going to be there. India, generally, that is the last resort that can ever happen.
and believe me, friends, that's so true that India as a country, though we've seen layoffs happening, companies generally take this as a last resort. Till it's possible, they don't go to lay off people.
Seriously, they pull it till the last penny. And now when they realize that the whole ship is going to be down, they try to protect so that whoever are there and they see a future ahead so that they can take people back again.
Unless they are such a stable, huge, gigantic mammoth that they can carry forward these losses and still
Absolutely, like
manage.
people and people who've been in the industry for let's say 100 years and more or 50 years and more. That's a different scenario.
And they generally would not lay off people. They might not pay increments, but they don't generally lay off people.
Yes.
So let's try and understand that if this is an incident which keeps happening, and in our career and our
We've seen that.
yes,
We've seen that.
in these
Yeah.
few years that we worked, we've seen so many of them in different industries. So, what are some early warning signals you can notice before the layoff starts happening? Why should you notice the signals so that you can take proactive steps to move on?
Absolutely, which means everyone who is working there, especially people who've been working for a while there, they have a habit to get into a comfort zone.
Yes.
And they stop thinking on this direction that something like this can happen and they're so cool about it. No, I feel it's very important for everyone working, be vigilant, be alert. Now, how do you be vigilant? What is the first thing? When you see in the organization hiring has freezed.
So, all of a sudden, till yesterday there was a boom, now all of a sudden hiring is freeze, they're not recruiting anyone.
Yes.
It's a warning signal.
Second, expansion plans, innovation, research, everything is put on hold. I said, no, now let's keep this on hold. Let's see in the future. Which means there is something not great because every company knows that the only two ways to grow is marketing and innovation. And if innovation has stopped, if research has stopped, that means there is something not correct here.
So, the company is trying to sustain, it's not wanting to grow.
Grow. Yes.
Then all of a sudden micromanagement becomes a way for everyone.
Yes.
Every small little thing is being managed. Where were you? What were you doing? What was the time you were performing
Yes,
this task?
absolutely.
It's not the boss's nature. Everyone has become like this because of insecurity and fear and wanting to put everyone on task, which means something is not okay here.
And if two words have become a very common word in the company, cost cutting, cost cutting, cost cutting. If everybody's talking about cost cutting, which means your alarm has to be high, your antenna has to go high, you have to be alert that there's a cost cutting going on, which means there are chances that something might not go and my number can come.
Then expenses really being monitored at minuscule level.
Like initially when everything is great, you are doing parties, you are doing expenses,
Employee engagement.
employee engagement is happening, client engagement is happening, all is happening, a lot of money being spent. Now all of a sudden being told that no more spending. Give see to it that minimum level whatever expenses can you do.
So instead of hiring 5-star hotels,
Come
all
to
of a
3-star.
sudden, yes.
Instead of flying, go by train.
Or probably even happening in the company premises.
Yes.
You reduce the numbers, do it online, but just don't spend money.
Absolutely.
Then you all of a sudden seeing resignations happening in bulk. Till yesterday someone was working, today 4 people have left. Why did
Absolutely.
this happen?
And people above have started moving.
So if you notice these signals, then your alarm should be triggered. It is time for you to move on.
Yes.
It's not the time to stay put. Even if your boss is saying, if you get to know and the boss is saying, you don't have to worry, guys, it's not a great time, you should definitely have an offer.
I
in
have
hand.
a wonderful story of my client. Okay, so he was working before he could join me. He was working in an organization, and he could see certain symptoms. He went to the boss. Boss said, "Boss, main hu na. Nothing of this is going to happen with you. Don't worry. Nothing is going wrong. I am there. Don't worry." And after 3 months, boss left the company, and he told him that, "Boss, I would not give you complete direct, but yeah, things are not great, so I'm leaving. So you also look out for a job." So 3 months, okay, the boss was wanting to manage his own affairs. So sometimes we do not need to trust anybody. When these signals are there, we need to understand something is not okay.
It's also important to understand who are the people who first get laid off.
Yes.
Right? So by and large, studies show that there is not particular formula that a company forms.
Yes.
There is no model that they are replicating. But who are the people who are targeted? By and large, company first targets the low performers.
Absolutely.
So when the company is going through a survival mode, believe me, the first on line to be hit are people who are not performing well. They are put into that mode. They have been asked to resign. So that is the first category of people.
Second people are those people who have a very common skill, a skill which is very easily available and at a cheaper cost.
So if your skill is available at a cheaper cost and you can just be replaced, which means you would be the next at target. Then, generally when time is really going great, these things don't matter. They do matter, but they don't matter so much.
Yes.
But people with bad attitude, mood swings, emotional outbursts, they are the ones who are getting targeted when there is a layoff, because no one is wanting to support them at that time. You may be a star player, but here it's time that you are on the target and you're the one who's getting hit.
Also people who are not good team player, because that is a very crucial role if you are on a managerial level and you need to be a team player, and if you're not a team player, that is the time also that the number comes.
People who have very poor networking, right? They just don't know anyone. They just come there, do their job, move on every day. They just come, swipe in, work, leave. But they're not interested in finding out and building connections are the people who are on the hit list when this list is considered by the HR.
Absolutely. And people who are recently appointed, just recently appointed. So these are the people who just recently joined. So company knows that, okay, there's no greater value add, they've just joined. So let's give them
We have to train them.
We have to train them, we have to invest. So why not just first take them off?
Or people who are close to retiring.
Yeah.
So these are people with bulk salaries.
Yes.
There'll be benefits which have to be given to them. So why not ask them to take a pre-retirement and move out?
Of course, there will be many more, but these are the few that we have heard when all this has happened. Based on that experience, we are sharing this.
So if these warning signals are happening in your company, or if you're falling in any of these categories that I just mentioned, then you should aggressively, and I would use this word, repeat it again, aggressively start job hunting.
Yes.
Now let's discuss how to reduce the chances of being laid off. I've showed you the warning signals. I've told you who are on the hit list. So if you want to be cautious enough and start taking precautions, then what is that you need to do so that you're not on a hit list, even if the company would go through a
Absolutely.
financial crisis and decide of laying off people?
You should be a person in a situation where it's like more of indispensable. That you're so good, that company cannot think about surviving without you. So the first thing is perform at your peak level.
So generally high performers are
never touched. They will be as if the company shutting down completely, then that's a different scenario. Otherwise, people at the peak performer, high performer, nobody touches them.
Then keep innovating at work.
Yes.
Don't just keep doing things the way they are done. Which means you're really not doing any great value add sitting at that place. If you're not innovating, if you're not improvising the process, the systems, you're just not doing anything, then you're the one who would be on the hit list. But as long as you're innovating, you're putting in new process, you're reaching out, coming up with new ideas,
yes,
then you're the one who's going to be treasured in the organization.
At the same time, be a help to others, which means it should not be only about me. How, as an individual, not only that I'm doing my role, completing my target, but I'm also helping others to do the same. If you're a person who's there to help, in crisis time, believe me, they always want people who take people together, who help people, who are there for people. So be that one person who's always there to help others.
To add on to this, learn to multitask.
Yes.
So I remember one of my clients sharing this with me when we were having our initial session. She was saying that she was working for a small little organization, and when a huge, this is not in this country, she was talking about UK, when there was so much of meltdown happening and people were being laid off, she was the one who was asked to stay put in the organization, because she was the one who would keep offering herself whenever someone was absent in her department.
Yeah.
So they all knew that she can single-handedly handle things. So when it came to reducing the manpower, she could manage work of 3-4 people. So she sustained, others lost the job.
Absolutely. Then be a lifelong learner. Okay, keep learning new skills, new programs, new certifications, and keep adding value to the company, because you are always going to be valued if you add value to the company, and you can only add value to the organization if you are adding value to your own life. And that's why keep learning lifelong.
Don't underplay yourself.
Yes.
There are many people who just don't know how to become visible in the organization.
Yes.
They may be working very hard, but people will not be knowing that these are the kind of efforts this person is putting it.
Those days have gone when you can say that, I'm doing, people will see it, people will notice. Today you're working with organization where there are thousands of people working, and then it is very difficult for you to be just completely watched until unless you don't take efforts to be noticed.
Then, like he said, keep upgrading your skills so that you don't become redundant at any point of time. We all know technology is moving at a fast pace. There was a time when we were talking about computers, laptops, software. Today it's technology. If you are not upgrading yourself, you can just be replaced like that.
Absolutely. Another thing, have a great attitude at your work. So people with a great attitude, everybody wants them. A person who's always positive, a person who's always go-getter, a person who's always ready to find solution. Not a person who is complaining, creeping and crying. Person who always there, who is optimistic, who is very, who is always thinking of solutions. These are the people with this kind of attitude will always be there.
And of course, be an energetic, enthusiastic person whom people can reach out for help.
Yes.
So you should be that go-to person. When anyone wants anything, they feel he's the right person, I can go and talk. Even if he cannot help, he'll maintain the confidentiality of what I have shared, and probably will give me a solution indirectly.
Yes.
So if you're that go-to person, believe me, you're not going to be on that hit list.
Very true.
In fact, in our workshop, 5M to Ace Your Career, we focus on 2 important things which can avoid you in being laid off.
Yes.
The first one is, we teach you one entire session of 1 day on how to add value to your organization.
Absolutely.
And if you're doing that, believe me, friends, you're not the person who's going to be touched.
And the second thing we talk about is the mindset, that you need to succeed at your workplace, because the mindset plays a very critical role. What is the mindset that you're working every single day?
So if any of you who are working and have used any of these or are applying these 9 points, please drop it in the comment section. We'd like to know whether you're really implementing these things, which will help you not only to avoid being laid off, but to progress and succeed in your
Absolutely.
life.
Snehal, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us. So, this is so important, like every time we do this 5M Ace Your Career, this workshop, we see that so many people, just through the workshop, whatever that we have given all this 5M, they apply that and they are able to have really amazing results.
So if you've learned even these 2 aspects, you'll never fall short of job opportunities.
Absolutely.
We teach in our workshop. And dear friends, one buzz thing which is happening is, today so many countries are wanting to own the name called as Rishi Sunak.
Yes.
Right? So if countries can do this for an outstanding player in his field, then why will a company want to take risk of laying off you? They will want to retain you, provided you're an outstanding player at your workplace.
Absolutely. I have a lovely experience on this. I remember that my boss, When I left the company, started my own portfolio management company, and I remember he telling me, you know what? I think you're doing a big mistake. You feel that things have been sold because of you. No, it's because of our brand. It's because of a company, and you will fail. And then I started my portfolio. First year itself, I was number one in the country. I'll repeat, I was number one in the country as a consultant, and then I was being awarded. And that time, my boss who was there behind came on the stage and said, you know what? He came and he said, these are the two people who I have trained. They were working under me. And I knew one day that when he left the company, this guy is going to do great. So everything changes if you perform, if you're a star. Kaushal, good evening. Thank you very much.
So today, guys, we are anyways in such a fast moving environment. Things are changing so rapidly. And in that, if you don't keep learning and your performance curve is not really high, then chances of you being replaced is very high, whether the company is laying off in masses or not.
Absolutely.
But you definitely can be replaced by someone who's interested in performing.
At the same time, if such unfortunate thing happen, okay, God sake, whatever, something like this happens with you, then the most crucial thing is to realize it. It's not a battle which cannot be fought. It's not time to wallow in self-pity or feel victimized or lose your self-confidence. Rather, it's actually a signal coming from the universe telling you, get up, there is something big for you, there is something greater for you.
So like we said, it's all about the mindset and attitude.
Yes.
If this has unfortunately happened with you guys, then it's time to really get up. It's a signal coming from the universe, right? In fact, in last workshop of ours, we had one of the person who was laid off during the COVID times. He was really low, depressed, and we could help him get a job, and everything started changing. But before we had met him, he was 9 months.
9 months.
9 months jobless. Why? Because he was, wallowing in that self-pity. I was victimized. People didn't treat me well. I did not get justice. But that doesn't help, right? The family is needing the money.
Absolutely. He lost his confidence completely, and somebody would work for 18 years, my dear friend. Imagine you're sitting home and how difficult it was for him to be there. And that's the time when we started coaching him, and in just span of 45 days, he could have a breakthrough.
So we've coached people who've been laid off, and they've taken up jobs which are much better than what they were doing.
Absolutely.
A greater profile, more money, better company.
Yes.
But one very significant aspect which I don't want to miss out at this point of time is, why does a person break down? It's not only because he feels humiliated, but it is because he's in financially such a bad situation.
True.
That thinking that what if I don't get a job in the next 30 days kills him. How can you avoid that? You can avoid that by just not only planning your career, but
Yes.
planning your finances properly.
Yes.
Always keep a check. How much is that I can spend? We all in India believe house is an asset. No, it's not an asset. It is a liability till it is on loan. It's a liability till it is on loan. It is not an asset.
Absolutely
So
correct.
even if you're wanting to own a house, please check your financial situation. See how much money is there for the down payment. Do you have an emergency kitty that if something goes wrong, I can still run my house for 6 months, 1 year?
The way we always have an insurance cover with us, okay, same way, set some money aside for something like this, a money where you can sustain for at least 3 to 6 months.
And because of that, because you have a backup, you don't go through this fear and insecurity.
Yes.
And you can still manage life. But people who don't have that backup, because of this insecurity, because knowing that tomorrow my children's school fees have to be paid, the EMIs have to be paid, I don't know how it's going to be manageable. And
Yes.
that's why this person was depressed, right? And we've really unfortunately even heard people committing suicide because they feel they're not capable of handling their family requirements,
Absolutely.
especially if he or she is a provider of the house. So please take care and plan your finances also very well. That's one of the very crucial element, because this is the world we are living in, and it can happen in any organization. at
And it
any
can
point
happen
of
to
time.
anyone, okay?
Absolutely
So
right.
like we always say in our workshop, this is something we say, it's your career. So take the complete ownership of it. If you do that, no layoffs will ever be a concern for you. So guys, thank you so much once again for giving your time.